Hello everyone, Conasa here, and welcome back to Kerbal Gets Real. We are now in the year 1956, and we hope to achieve, this year, to bring something back down from orbit that we have placed there, and hopefully not have it burn up in the harsh atmosphere. So we're going to start off this episode in the vehicle assembly building because at the beginning of 1956, I unlocked entry, descent and landing, which of course gave us those heat shields that are very, well, all important to bringing something back down safely and not have it completely burn up as it enters through Earth's atmosphere. And we're just going to give it a little bit of a paint job as well. And now I have decided to call this thing Hecate. I think that's how it's pronounced. After the Greek goddess of dogs. Well, one of her many roles was the goddess of dogs. But I was kind of thinking along the lines of Sputnik 2, which obviously was the rocket that sent up Laika. But here we go. Before we do any of that, we have Pyroth 4 on the 3rd of March 1956. Now, this is our attempt at achieving that sun-synchronous orbit. Obviously, we launched Pyroth 3 at the end of last episode, and that thing, well, yes, it blew up in the middle of the air because one of the LR-89 boosters decided that it was no longer going to work and basically made the entire rocket crumple in on itself. But this time, we had a lovely booster separation there. There was a quick F3 screen because I thought, well, that thing is spinning rather quickly. It shouldn't really be doing that, so what's gone on? But nothing had gone on, nothing had gone wrong at all, and this thing made it into orbit perfectly. And that was a bit of a worrying stage there. Firing up that AJ-1042 is always a little bit of a worry because the ignition failure on that thing is just so damn high. It is, I think, about 15% at the moment. Obviously, every time I'm using it, that goes down. But there we go. We made the orbit. We had our eccentricity of 0.3, which was more than enough to satisfy that contract. Finally back at the vehicle, not the vehicle assembly building, finally back at the Space Center. And there we have just decided to build ourselves a new launch pad because we're going to need that 350-ton launch pad if we are going to want to start lunar missions. And now that is something that is definitely on the agenda because, well, the moon is an entire area that obviously we've not gone to yet, so we can run all of our science experiments there. But here we go, the first launch of the Hecate series on a Hercules SLV. Basically, it's a Hercules small. It doesn't have that AJ-1042 upper stage that the previous Hercules launches had. I'm getting all of my mythological names mixed up here, but yes, this thing, it's basically just that core LR-105 stage with the two LR-89 boosters, and that thing worked an absolute charm. We were able to get the Hecate probe up into space with our little dog or monkey. I think it's in the description of that science thing. Yes, we managed to get our dog or monkey up into space. Hopefully it lasts a little bit longer than Laika, because she only lasted around 2 hours and was unfortunately killed due to overheating, or so the story goes. It wasn't really known until quite recently, because obviously, it being part of the Soviet space program, it was rather secretive. But yes, this mission was a great success. We managed to deorbit successfully using that small separation motor, and now comes the real test of this thing. Can it survive the, well, quite deadly effects of re-entering Earth's atmosphere as soon as you have hit orbital velocity? There we can see the lovely flame particles come up over that heat shield as it screams its way back down towards Earth at about, well, now down to 1500 meters per second, but it was going a lot faster than that to begin with. But yes, no, everything survived. Nothing burnt up, which is really, really nice because, well, a lot of the times things can be kind of placed a bit funny and the heat shield doesn't quite catch them. But there, the parachute successfully deployed and we come crashing down into the middle of the Sahara Desert. Well, with the resounding success of Hecate 1, we gained an entire 60.4 science. So that is an awful lot of science, and we are of course going to research some stuff straight away. We decided to go with the next lot of orbital rocketry because better rockets are always nice. We have also gone for stability, well, early flight control, and we went for basic avionics because, well, that unlocks us the all-important deep space avionics for procedural avionics, which is, of course, very nice. And if we're going to be wanting to do any kind of maneuvering around the moon, we are going to need those. You saw me just upgrade mission control there so I could unlock flight planning. Obviously, that is going to be something very important to get to the moon as well. I could eyeball it, but I would rather not. I would rather actually place down some maneuver nodes and, you know, do it properly. But there we go, Hecate 2 has just been finished, and I realized that we failed a contract, so we are on negative funds. So rather than re-picking up that contract and trying to go for it, I thought, screw it, we're gonna go for the moon. We are going to pick up that lunar flyby and that lunar impactor. We've got 730 days in order to do that, so 2 years. Can we build a lunar rocket within 2 years? Well, I really hope we can, because otherwise we are going to be in a lot of trouble because we have spent all of that money already. You can see me doing it there on upgrades for, well, the vehicle assembly building and research and development. But here we have Hecate 2 on the 5th of September 1956 on, once again, a Hercules 1 launch vehicle. And I decided to cut out most of that launch because, well, we saw it with Hecate 1. There is no point just showing those over and over and over again because that would get rather boring rather quickly. But rest be assured, this thing made it to space. It did its deorbit burn there successfully. Everything went about as well as it could have done. We have been very, very, very lucky this year. We have not had any failures yet. And there we go, splashing down into the ocean. Once again, a complete success after only 6 hours in space. I mean, we only kept that thing in space for 6 hours because that's all we needed for it to, well, get the last of those science points for that biological capsule. That's another science experiment we have completely expended now. But it doesn't really matter because, well, we are getting an awful lot of money for all of these contracts as well, which is always very nice. Overall, in this episode, well, we've already earned about 800,000 from picking up those lunar contracts and from also completing these orbital return contracts. They are a great moneymaker, but not as good a moneymaker as the first crewed orbital mission, which we are currently working our way towards. That is the next big goal. Well, after a lunar flyby, it will be to get the first man or woman up into space. Now, I don't know who's going to do it yet, and I believe all of my astronauts will retire before we actually get round to doing that, which is a little bit of a shame. But, oh well, it would have meant getting someone up by 1957, which is, of course, really, really, really difficult. I am going through this rather quickly anyway. But here we have the final launch of 1956 on the 11th of November. This is, once again, a Hecate probe. It is Hecate 3, and you may have seen there that I had an ignition failure on that LR-89 on the right there. Now, due to my quick actions, I was able to disengage the autopilot in time, and then basically try to relight this thing, and it of course failed again because I didn't activate the engine. So, well, as soon as the engine was activated, I could actually launch this thing, and it would work. Now, I don't mind doing this on the launch pad because launch pad failures, to be honest, they're a little bit of a pain and there is an option to turn them off. I think they are turned off by default. I have them on for some reason, but it's really just kind of like time. It wastes time because all you would do is you would roll the rocket back and then you'd roll it back out again to basically fix the broken engine. If you just kind of launch it from the launch pad anyway, just kind of like doing what I just did there, it saves a little bit of time that's really kind of unnecessary and yeah, just a little bit annoying more than anything. So I might turn that off in the future, but I skipped the rest of the flight. This thing only went up for 20 minutes because all it was there for was to achieve that contract. But there we have it. That was the final launch of 1956. Yes, there weren't that many launches this year because I made a mistake. At Hecate 1, well, I tried to skip to the morning and I accidentally hit the very, very fast forward button, which sent me a long way into the future. Here we are in the vehicle assembly building because we have picked up that lunar contract and we are going to need something that is going to be able to achieve that. And we have, quite frankly, nothing anywhere near the sort at the moment. Our rockets are definitely designed for low Earth orbit. So here we unlocked that probe core, which we are going to use because I like procedural avionics and I do like using them. However, there is, I don't know if it is tied directly to procedural avionics, but it does seem to work. If you use a root part that is not procedural, the sun flare, which sometimes disappears, doesn't seem to disappear as much. And obviously, like, that makes the sun look a lot more beautiful, and in a series where I'm trying to make everything look rather nice, I would like that to be there as much as possible. So I'm going to try and avoid using procedural parts as the root part as much as possible, just so it looks a bit nicer. So yeah, there we go. We've got that probe core. We've got a lot of science on there. We've also got a thermometer, a barometer, and a mass spectrometer on top. We've got our RCS systems. We have some solar panels. We have a battery, which we are going to remove later on. I was toying with the idea of putting some RCS on this stage, but figured out it added a little bit too much weight to this thing to really kind of give it enough delta V to actually get to the moon. So I thought, let's try and use the RCS from that probe core basically to actually do the final fine-tuning and ullage of this stage. And well, in tests it worked, so we'll see how that actually goes when we launch these next year, hopefully next year. But that was it. That was the Artemis 1 under construction, well, basically completed. And now we are going to be working on our next series of launch vehicles, which is going to be the Heracles 2. It's not the Hercules 2. I named it correctly this time, and I decided, yes, we would go with Heracles because obviously that is the Greek equivalent of Hercules, which, as I said quite near the beginning of the series, I want to name them kind of after Greek mythological beings because the planets are named after Roman mythological beings, so it just kind of made sense to me. But here we are creating a lovely little boat tail for that dual LR105 stage. So yes, the core of this is going to be using two LR105 engines, and then what we see here, we are putting on a load of boosters, 4 to be precise, and they are going to have LR89 engines. And basically, this is the big brother of the Hercules 1. The Hercules 1 having one LR105 core stage and then 2 LR89 boosters. No, this has got double that, and it also has an upper stage which also uses an LR105. And this thing, well, the first thing I created when making this was a tank which weighed about 4.5 tons, and this thing is capable of getting 4.5 tons to low Earth orbit, which is more than enough for that little Artemis probe that we are going to be sending. That thing only weighs about 2.5 tons, so hopefully this thing should be future-proofed as well. We won't really have to, well, this rocket should last us a very long time, hopefully. But here I am, just giving it the old paint job, just to make it look a bit nicer, remove a lot of those flags that kind of seem odd on the sides of those rockets. And yeah, I think black and white really does seem to be my color scheme at the moment, but I think it looks rather nice. And well, yeah, I mean, you can disagree with me if you want, but yeah, I think it looks rather pretty, that rocket, and I'm quite proud with how this thing has turned out. I think, yeah, probably one of the nicer looking rockets that I have built. Here I am just going through the staging, making sure everything works perfectly on this actual rocket before putting it in as a sub-assembly. That's one thing I like doing. I like building launch vehicles and then putting them in as a sub-assembly. Of course, we need those separation motors to send that core stage back down to Earth. There it is, the Heracles 2, a roughly 4.5 ton LEO launch vehicle. And here we are just going in now and placing it on the Artemis, because obviously it would be a bit of a waste sending a tank full of lead to the moon. No, we want to actually send some scientific equipment. We had to do a quick rejigging of the staging as well, because for some reason whenever I add sub-assemblies it always messes it up, and it's a little bit annoying, but it's not the end of the world. But yeah, that was that. That is the Artemis mission, which we will be seeing next episode, because we are at the end of 1956. It is now December, and we have nothing left to launch. So we're just going to skip ahead now to 1957, having a look at some of the contracts that we can pick up. But there we go. The 1st of January, 1957. And what a year it's going to be. It was the year that Sputnik obviously first made it up. Hopefully it will be the year where we fly by and hit the moon. But yeah, that will happen in next episode. If you have enjoyed this episode, why not go and give it a like? If you have really enjoyed it and would like to keep up with content on my channel, please do consider subscribing. I have been Karnasa, and I will see you later.